Is anime dying? Was the SAG-AFTRA strike even worth it? Who won the Video Game Awards? Stick around and I'll tell ya. Hey friends! Welcome to my channel. My name is Cari. I go by Cypress online. It is my dream to be an entertainer, so if you are at all entertained by this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. First, I know my teasers, I am horrible. They sound so commercially salesman-y. I'm not used to doing that kind of thing, but it was given as some advice, so I thought I would try it, you know, just so you can kind of see. This is going to be kind of time skip happy or time stamp-ish happy, I guess. So if you're ever interested in something that I am not talking about, but I mentioned in the teaser, the description should have a time, and I'm trying to be fairly good about summarizing what it's going to be about in a few words rather than just like clickbaity type of things. Like this way you know what it is, right? So yeah, so I haven't done one of these news entertainment things in a while, but they got rather good views in terms of my small channel, so I figured this is something that people would benefit from. So I've been admittedly out of the loop. I have lived like 5 lifetimes in 4 weeks. If you want a little bit more about that, I have a vlog happening. So yeah, check out my vlog. Just as kind of like a housekeeping kind of whatever. This is probably gonna be, this and like maybe end the vlog will be the last video of 2023, I think. I'm not gonna do like a retrospective countdown, anything like that yet. I do want to get more into the entertainment news and video game, you know, gossip, just kind of, you know, overall on this channel. I think that would be a great home for me, but I cannot put that on myself right now. So that'll probably be a 2024 thing. But so far, just so you guys know, it is my intention to have at least one entertainment news video a week where I pull headlines that caught my attention throughout that week, and I'll either read the articles or summarize what's going on and give you my opinion and ask your feedback in the comments. And I would love to have a rebuttal corner or whatever where I read your comments and the conversation continues. We can even, you know, I have a Discord that I never use. So, you know, I'd love for it to kind of grow and be a great place where it, you know, a community of just, you know, voicing your opinion, kind of like Reddit, but a very small section and group of us, you know. So that is what I'm hoping for. I also will be probably posting a vlog, just, you know, about me summarizing, you know, whatever, anything interesting that happened that week. And then I do still want to do more of the sort of scripted deep dive type out of the loop things like I discussed in the other video. I think I've said it so many different places, it's kind of hard to keep track. So that is something, that is a task that I'm gonna have to be pretty good at come the new year. But so potentially I will post 3 times a week. Depends on a lot of life things, you know. A lot is up in the air right now, a lot. And so it's just, it's a lot. Yeah, that's a very descriptive, isn't it? But that's the best way I can describe it. A lot's going on personally. Heater just came on, but I hope it will sound fine. I will not record the way I did last episode of the Out of the Loop. The audio wasn't that bad, but it could always be better. So hopefully this will be fine. And so let's start. So first, I think I'm gonna start with the one that has less news, and it's more just a public opinion that was released that I wanted to kind of discuss. So I am referencing a Reddit post actually on anime news, and it is an article on CBR which quotes Terumi Nishi, who made a Twitter post, and then they actually wrote an article about it. So I will put the link for this article in the description, as I'm not going to read this in its entirety. I just wanted to kind of pinpoint a few parts. Jujutsu Kaisen animation director says industry will collapse in only a few years. The latest comments by Jujutsu I keep wanting to say jujitsu, but I think that's the martial arts, right? This is jujutsu. Kaizen O, Kaizen Zero. I'm so sorry. I've heard of the anime, but I've not seen a zero at the end of it, so I'm assuming maybe that's a time skip or something. Chief Animation Director I have to make this closer to me. Oh my gosh, I am blind as a bat. Terumi Nishi raised serious alarm bells about the future of the anime industry. On November 28th, 2023, Terumi Nishi stated on X, formerly Twitter, that the industry only has a few years left before it collapses. Seriously, it's over. Once Kagawa's generation leaves, everything will end at once. We need to do something about the training scheme by then. It is a zero because I typed in the actual article. Kagawa refers to Hisashi Kagawa, the prominent animation director behind many Sailor Moon and Revolutionary Girl Utena episodes. Kagawa's special Sailor Moon artwork made headlines earlier this year, and Nishi worked alongside him on the Utena movie as an assistant animator. Nishi is part of the rising movement to improve working standards for animators in Japan, also seen with NAFCA. She's been calling for a training scheme for years, highlighting that a standard skill set is the only way to raise standards in the industry, and continued in a follow-up post. Animation studios can't handle nurturing new personnel, because the ones who have been nurturing animators until now are freelance animators. It's impossible for clueless companies that only understand numbers. This reality was made especially clear only a few days ago when Hiroyuki Kanbe, director for Oreimo, announced on X that he was leaving Studio Enji from Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. He voiced his sadness that the company was getting rid of its new employee training program. Nishi's warning follows her explosive interview 2 weeks ago, blasting the rising trend of companies outsourcing their work to Twitter animators while failing to train their own staff. She and voice actor Ayano Fukumiya had called on the U.S. acting union, SAG-AFTRA, to speak some sense into the youth, stating that the anime industry was crumbling. Given recent events at MAPPA, it's hard for many to disagree that the industry is in a dire state. The mental health of Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 staff has been pushed to the brink by unrealistic production schedules, with one animator commenting that the company was happy to push more work on him, but repeatedly stalled payment negotiations. Nishi worked on Jujutsu Kaisen 0, from which another staff member came forward recently to detail MAPPA's brutal expectations. The recent change to Jujutsu Kaisen's streaming times in Japan is thought to allow more time for animators to polish episodes, which animators say aren't even close to completion. And the Reddit kind of went in a specific direction with their comments from Radon155 said, it's not just animation. When the silver tsunami hits, it's going to rock every industry from welding to lodging to accounting to animation. And someone asked, what is silver tsunami? And that is referring to the fact that Japan's population is very old, like its chlorine said. Likely referring to a wave of mass retirement in a short span of time. And so not only are birth rates on the decline, there's no more like the idea of apprenticeship and just kind of teaching, the newer generation. And I don't think this is Japan specific. I kind of see this in America as well. We're also automating a lot of processes, which helps in some things. I do think it would be good for like warehouses and those factories to be more automated so that those people don't have to have mindless jobs of just putting, A to B and sending it along. So they might be, more open to, more interesting jobs. However, I speak from a place of ignorance on that topic because some people either do like that or for one reason or another aren't skilled in anything else, and maybe that's the only thing they feel confident doing. So even coming from a place of, you don't want to do something boring, no one can really explain, the experience of others, so I'm rambling on that. But basically, automation is just I guess I feel very, very biased on that. I didn't realize how biased I was, but because thinking like that, like, okay, well, just have ChatGPT make the new animation, right? Like you can, I'm sure, program animation. It's already CG now, so hand drawn like the old classic artistic way is virtually dead, I believe, at least here in America with like Disney. I'm assuming most anime is also now some sort of CG just because it's faster, right? And everyone, we are in the society generation of now, And so I think we're just relying so much on technology that some of those soft skills and physical, I guess they're called technical skills. Is it hard? I guess hard skills, because that's the like woodworking and welding and like those type of stuff. Construction, learning how to build a house. Is that a hard skill? Is that what they call it? Because soft skill is like customer service. I think that's correct. But because most of my hard skills are technical skills. I know how to sew, but in terms of like a business setting and an office setting, it's more, do you know Microsoft Office and stuff, right? But so it is becoming an issue and is kind of getting glossed over, and it needs to not be a political thing, and it's more just, this is what is happening. If you look statistically, less children are being birthed than it had in the past. Is this going to be a problem for terms, for the global economic, socio, like that kind of goods and services, So let me know down in the comments down below. I know it's kind of, I kind of really waffled that discussion, but it's sad to think that some of these really beautiful, old-fashioned, art forms are going to die, now that we have mass-produced pottery and such. The handmade pottery is a luxury, I suppose, but it's just so much cheaper to buy a 20-piece for, $20 than it is to buy one that it took like hours or, weeks or whatever, because it has to cure and stuff, I hope I'm making sense. I'm just going to keep pushing forward. And now we are going to talk about SAG-AFTRA. So just to kind of really briefly, I have a lot, and I keep saying this, I probably will give me, I don't know, maybe while I take this break, I will make a new playlist of topics of AI and voiceover, specifically for artificial intelligence, the AI clause in contracts, what synthetic voices is doing to the voiceover art form, career path, So I've spoken at length on that. Long story short, AI is coming in and it's pushing out a lot of the smaller artists and talent that haven't quite built their career. But this issue is also affecting those well-established, and it's also affecting people who are not in a creative field. If you have ever put your voice anywhere publicly, if you were ever in a silly YouTube video, if you were a guest on a podcast, uploading your family, winter holiday where you told a family story around the fireplace, like such innocuous things can be used against you, and not against you, but there is that fear mongering that, scams are out there, that they'll do deep fakes of you to get your information and get your money, use you to scam your loved ones, especially the older generation, and those also just more vulnerable in general, because if it sounds like you and it can make it look like you, if it's a time sensitive thing and it's an emergency, if it's like, I'm your cousin and I haven't talked to you in years, but I desperately need money. Otherwise, our shared, my uncle, your brother or whatever, right? Wait, cousin, my father, your uncle, is going to die. Give me, $5,000 or something. When you have that, that scare, people are getting scammed, and people were already getting scammed, and now it's just getting better. The scammers are getting better. So this is an overall security issue in the big scheme of things. And it's also very specific to the voiceover industry. So let me read Prism. Did I say that right? Yeah, Prism. reports little thing on SAG-AFTRA. So really quickly, SAG-AFTRA is the union for actors and stuff. That's what it actually stands for. Don't ask me, I don't remember now, but I'll put it here what it actually stands for. So it is for like movie stars and commercial actors and that kind of stuff. But there's a little bit under that umbrella voice actors live. So voice acting doesn't have its own union. They're sort of creating, NAVA is sort of creating that space, but I don't think it's an official union. Like I do join it, but it's different. It's just a group. I think maybe in the future it will become its own union because people need to look out for voice actors specifically. But as it currently stands, SAG-AFTRA is the union that Voiceover falls under, if that makes sense, okay? So when they did their strike, if you guys remember a few months ago, it lasted a while. It was mostly for writers, but there was hope in the voiceover community that they would also, the AI clause and stuff would also cover voice as well, and likeness as well, the, physical, deep fakes type of a stuff. So I hope that was the high level, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and read this article because I think it is really well written, and I've been fumbling. I wasn't going to read the whole thing. I was going to just take clips, but I don't trust myself with how I handled that anime one. So we just gonna read this full creative writing things to Laura Weiss. And this was written December 5th, 2023. SAG-AFTRA's new contract falls short on protections from artificial intelligence. Critics fear that weak language and loopholes on AI could impact disadvantaged actors first and hardest. After 118 days on strike, the Screen Actors Guild, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, that's what it stands for, board, voted November 8th on a tentative new contract with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers, AMPTP, by a majority of 86% to 14%. After sending ballots to its 160,000 members over the past few weeks, voting on the contract wrapped on December 5th. The tentative end to the strike came on the heels of the successful negotiation of a new contract for the Writers Guild of America, WGA, who voted 99% to ratify the new contract after WGA leadership voted unanimously to accept it. The end of the long strike season was a relief for the Actors Union. According to SAG-AFTRA, the revolutionary gains achieved in these contracts are projected to generate more than $1 billion in new compensation and benefit plan funding. This would include pay increases for many principal actors and background actors, huge gains in pension and health contributions, and other wins like streaming bonuses and higher residual payments. Miriam Blanco, an actor and SAG-AFTRA member based in Los Angeles, said she feels pretty positive about the deal. "We could have come away with a lot less," she said. But not everyone is happy with the outcome, particularly regarding the contract's stipulation around the use of artificial intelligence, or AI, and its broad-reaching implications for actors. While the tentative contract includes regulations requiring producers to get actors' consent to use their likeness for AI, some are concerned that the language is too weak and the loopholes too broad to protect them. AI usage, particularly what the contract calls generative AI, could threaten to undo inroads made in diverse storytelling in Hollywood in recent years. Reports of racial, ethnic, and gender bias in AI are rampant, and its proliferation could perpetuate stereotypes about marginalized groups, take jobs from working actors, and upend entire genres and subfields, such as voice acting, animation, and stunt acting. Some fear it could eventually lead to the end of the industry as we know it. The contract divides artificial intelligence into several categories. The first is what's known as employment-based digital replica, which is based on an actual human actor. According to Melissa Medina, a SAG-AFTRA member and voiceover actor based in the Minneapolis area who is knowledgeable about AI from their previous work in the tech field, an example of this could be a video game character based on scans of a person. The contract establishes that creating an employment-based digital replica requires producers to give actors 48 hours notice, obtain clear and conspicuous consent from actors to use their likeness, and pay them for it. In many cases, that consent shall continue to be valid after the performer's death unless explicitly limited otherwise. Critics of the deal who spoke to Prism were most concerned about the sections on generative AI, which is used to create synthetic performers or digitally created assets that are not any specific human performer, but generated entirely through AI. This is uncharted territory. SAG-AFTRA member, actor, and director Saturuna in Los Angeles believes the union should have stood against its use, period, rather than trying to work with it. "It's very easy to replace us with this technology," she said. "We shouldn't normalize it." Amen. The protections also include some significant loopholes. For one, for AI involving the participation of human actors, Schedule F performers who make more than $80,000 for a film are exempted. Exempted. I'm saying it the same way, And consent is not required from actors if the photography or soundtrack remains substantially as scripted, performed, and/or recorded. Prior consent given can apply to future features if the producer includes a reasonably specific description of the intended use language that could be interpreted broadly by producers. That sounds like it will never become an issue. The contract also doesn't protect against retaliation in the hiring process for not giving consent. Actors or young actors or desperate actors who want to work, they're gonna feel the pressure to just check the box, Runa said. As Kate Bond, a SAG-AFTRA actor and strike captain who planned to vote against the deal, put it, they forgot to put protections in the AI protections. She noted that unlike the WGA deal, where union members came to the table with the explicit position that writers are people, the SAG contract falls short of making such a stance. And if digital likenesses are used without an actor's consent, they are entitled to arbitration, but remedies are limited to monetary damages, she added. This doesn't say that producers would then need to remove the actor's data from wherever they store it. They could just pay damages and continue using it, Bond said. I did not realize that till I read this, and yeah, that's nice. As Medina noted, there is also little information about where data of actors' likeness will be stored, if consent can be revoked, and how servers would even technologically be capable of removing data once it is uploaded. Information used to create digitally altered synthetic performers could come from amalgamations of different actors' features, voices, and movements. All it takes is a prompt to smash together 6 or 7 different actors and create one Uber actor, Medina said. This would make seeking compensation for use of your physical features, voice, or movements nearly impossible, especially for actors who aren't recognizable. Finally, both Medina and Bond are worried about language that says the definition of synthetic performers does not include non-human characters, and therefore stipulations around consent may not apply to them. Producers could conceivably expand non-human to include not only CGI creatures or animals, for example, but also any animation or anime, or humanoid characters like superheroes. This could ultimately replace huge parts of the industry with AI. In the shorter term, voice acting, stunts, and dubbing work as we know it could disappear, warned Medina. With things like generative AI, there's no more need to engage the everyday working actor, folks like myself, who work as actors full-time, who aren't recognizable. And a lot of those folks are often people of color, said Medina, who is Latinx and indigenous. As it is, AI poses disproportionate dangers for people of color and other marginalized groups. There are so many biases with AI that physical representations of ethnicity will become extremely problematic, Medina said. For example, last month, the Taiwanese-American model Shireen Wu accused a major designer of altering her images so she appeared white. I honestly thought we were over this. Short of that, Blanco, who is disabled, worried that there are individuals and companies that are going to try to use AI as a shortcut to check a box of representation. Earlier this year, Levi's launched an ad campaign featuring supposedly diverse models, some of whom had been generated by AI. Bond agreed that generative AI could be used as a way around actually hiring diverse actors. Rather than finding an actor who meets certain racial, gender, or ethnic parameters, a diverse-looking synthetic performer could really just be a white guy at a computer. Blanco hopes that the protections in the SAG-AFTRA contract for AI are just the beginning, and that as AI advances, the union will be able to seek stronger ones. But Bond and others fear that the technology will advance much faster than the next round of contract bargaining, which won't begin until 2025. Side note, I didn't realize this was a regular thing. I remember hearing, a lot of strikes happening in recent years, but I thought it was just because people got more vocal in protecting their rights. I didn't realize that it is probably, every 2 years, huh? That makes a lot of sense. I'm not in that. I'm non-union, and I don't qualify for union at this time, so, I really don't keep a pulse on it very much. I respect and I support when the strikes happen, but, I don't keep up with, preliminary voting or anything like that, because it's not relevant to me. As for what happens next, Bond hopes that the contract will not be approved in its current form and that SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP will go back to the negotiating table to try to close some of the loopholes in the AI language. However, both she and Medina noted that they'd felt pressured to vote yes. And that's what's scary, that people are just going to be, I was going to say shoehorned, but that word is used differently, but just pressured to vote that way to get it passed for the rich people to get richer, essentially. But let me finish this. But it's clear that this issue reaches far beyond the scope of SAG-AFTRA. Recently, President Joe Biden signed an executive order seeking to manage AI risks. In California, a bill is underway that would give actors the right to revoke consent when their likenesses are used. And, as Medina noted, there are organizations working toward anti-AI technology. I hope that people who are not in entertainment are paying attention to what the actors who are voting no are saying, because we could be the standard set for other industries if we get the proper protections, Runa said. And nobody is immune from this. So essentially, that is what I said in my summary, but much more, Laura is great at finding and, quoting people. But yeah, that essentially, that concern is still here even after the agreement. For those who are interested on the more nerdy, actual where does it say it, I did look at the SAG-AFTRA TV/Theatrical Contracts 2023 Memorandum of Agreement. Now, this does say draft only, but this is the link that was provided in Laura's article, so I believe that is what they're referring to of they hope that it doesn't actually pass through. So I know the strike is over, so I guess they're still going through the contracts. I need to get more informed on this. I do understand that, but I wanted to discuss this while it was still relevant. So I also found this letter by Jeffrey Bennett, the general counsel. So I just wanted to read this briefly. SAG-AFTRA maintains that the right to digitally replicate a performer's voice or likeness to substantially manipulate a performance or to create a new digital performance is a mandatory subject of bargaining. In addition, the use of performer's voice, likeness, or performance to train an artificial intelligence system designed to generate new visual, audio, or audio-visual content is a mandatory subject of bargaining. You cannot unilaterally impose terms in individual contracts that purport to grant these rights. We are entitled to bargain over the compensation and terms under which these rights are granted and used. It is our position that language in a performer's contract which attempts to acquire the rights noted above are void and unenforceable until terms have been negotiated with SAG-AFTRA. The rights have not been conveyed. We look forward to working with you to negotiate appropriate terms and conditions as we continue to move our industry forward with exciting new technologies. Are they exciting? Are they? So within this contract, there is also this 2-page PDF graphic, I'll call it, which is regulating artificial intelligence. I will link this in the description down below. I won't read this myself, but it just it goes through employment-based digital replica versus independently created digital replica. Basically, employment-based is when the talent has already worked with for this project, and that's the one that I feel is more acceptable, which you'll hear in just a moment, but we talk about in the clause. It says basically if they needed to a retake because of background noise or something like that, or putting the actor who was sitting in the passenger seat of a car in the back of the car, where that actor was already there, they already got paid for their time. It's just for the creative, aspect to make it more visually appealing or stronger, whatever. They manipulated it in some way. I'm more okay with that. So for example, if I said, I want to ride a horse on Saturday, but my air conditioning came on, so it was a little bit loud or whatever. So if they used AI to replicate me saying, I want to ride a horse on Saturday, I'd already said it. They just wanted to clean it up. They wanted to clean up the audio. So they're using AI in a polishing sense. That's okay. It's this independently created digital replica where they use existing content to create new content. That's the part where, how can you get consent for that? How can you have, that's that in perpetuity, that's that scary words and everything that really needs to be more open. And I don't like the idea that they say, well, if they consent to it in this contract and it'll be good for other contracts, no. I think you need to be honest. If you use talent A, talent B, and talent D, you need to send, hey, A, you are using a partial, constructuring thing to create this new person that has 33%, I guess if you split it 3 ways, 33% likeness to you. That gets sent to talent A, talent B, and talent D. So they may not know who the other talents got merged with them. Maybe that's none of their business, but they know, hey, 10%, 75%. This is how much you were used, so this is how much you're entitled for this. How they can say, oh, well, it's an agglomeration, a conglomeration of, so many different people. Who can really say? You can say, because you clicked all those, those radial buttons or the drop-down menu, it came from something. You didn't just create it out of nothing. And that's really what the issue is. I think that's really what it comes down to. Why are you cutting out the talent in this? Fine, you want to create an alien that mixes like that. Maybe you do pick, an actor of the same age range of every ethnicity, and you merge all these, however many ethnicities there are. There's so many different countries and such. So you merge everybody, all these men, let's say between 20 to 40 years old, and you merge them all into one being or something, so that this is now an alien that represents literally the entire globe or something. You still used however many ethnicities, those men, those talents to create this. It's still not a completely never thought before thing. Animation and stuff can be a little bit different because you're taking and actually that's a perfect example. In animation, you take a sphere and rectangle and you put them together and you carve it and you shape it like a pottery, right? You take the clay and suddenly you make a dog, right? An animated, little CGI dog. That dog didn't exist before. It was a circle and a rectangle. In the terms in this of AI, that circle is Jane Doe, and that rectangle, well, I guess this was a dog, so I don't know. So the circle was Fido and the rectangle was Spot. They're two creatures that you use to make one creature. They're the parents, essentially. There is a difference, and why that's not being conceptualized just is really frustrating and flabbergasting. I'm flabbergasted. Can you be flabbergasting? Let me know in the comments down below. So let me read. I did pull out just some things. So under item 29, artificial intelligence, A, page 61, the parties acknowledge that the producers have historically used digital technologies to replicate or alter a performer's voice or likeness, example, CGI, audio-visual effects, during all stages of motion picture production. Example, pre-visualization, pre-production, production, post-production, distribution, marketing, and may continue to do so consistent with their historical practices. So if they've already done it, they can continue to do it. This one paragraph, it wasn't mentioned, and maybe unlike that, I am not a lawyer. I am not at all good with these contracts. Anytime I sign a contract, I usually send it to someone else because I'm like, what does this say? I've even worked in places where I've seen litigation, and documents and stuff, legal documents. There you go. My hair got stuck on my nail. And it's always oh my gosh, I feel like it's written in order to get loopholes and stuff sent. But this one sounds exactly like the fear that they said in the article was that, it's going to advance so much before 2025 comes around. And now this one sentence says, hey, historically, they've been doing it for 3 years now, so they're allowed to continue doing it. And I guess that's where another strike would happen, because it's like, no, we need to rewrite this. But it's just concerning. Then page 65, Roman numeral 2. Use other than in the motion picture for which the performer was employed. A producer may not use a performer's employment-based digital replica in connection with a motion picture other than one for which the performer was employed, or in any other field or medium without obtaining the performer's consent and bargaining separately for the use. That's a good clause. That means that, like we said, this is the employment-based digital replica. So this is when the actual actor or talent, stuntman, actually, jumped the car, past a train, right? They actually did that. So they can use that to kind of mismangle it, for their marketing purposes, and they can make things changes and stuff or whatever. But they can't use that for something else without, saying, hey, can we use this stunt? And again, that might be a bad example because I do not know how stunts work. I assume, though, again, that's their likeness. So I think just like with a voice actor or a background character, I feel like that is still similar. I mean, because then you get like, well, who owned the car? But I think the person in there doing the jump, I think is the person that, the contract would apply to. Consent must be clear and conspicuous, and include a reasonably specific description of the intended use. Again, very good, very good. I like that, at least. Consent must be obtained prior to use in a writing, well, this is just a draft, in a writing, signed by the performer, but not at the time of employment, except as provided in the next sentence. So again, they're saying if you want to use this like that in perpetuity would not exist. I sign it and I say, yeah, you can use my voice to replicate my voice in this scene that I already recorded because the audio got messed up. You heard a coughing from the audio engineer, so you need to redo this sentence, but I already recorded it. You're just, using my voice to re-record. I give you consent. You cannot use that without speaking to me again for for something else. You cannot use it in that generative AI where you use existing content without speaking to me first. With the next sentence, so this is the exception. When a performer is employed on a project specifically identified to be part of a multi-project use, such as a trilogy of motion pictures, consent to use the performer's employment-based digital replica in another of the identified projects may be obtained at the time the performer is first employed, provided that a reasonably specific description of the intended use is provided for each identified project. So again, that makes sense. You're going to use, a quote that I say in the first movie for all 3 movies, and you might want to change the emphasis or something, but so you write that description and they're like, yeah, okay, for that instance, for this movie, you can have my rights. That makes sense. I can agree upon this because again, they're getting paid for it and it's agreed up front. It's when this underhand stuff I don't like, Now, this is a concerning point. Any consent that the performer granted during the performer's lifetime, any consent during their lifetime, shall continue to be valid after the performer's death, unless explicitly limited otherwise. So if you don't put in your contract, you need to go to my next of kin or what's it called? The person who owns all your assets and stuff, or arbitrator? No, whatever. Yeah, is it arbiter? Whatever. The person who, is in charge of it. So, Jim Henson with Kermit the Frog, if he said, hey, once I pass, it goes to my son Brian Henson or whatever, that would be explicitly stated. So that is interesting because I know that James Earl Jones, the voice actor, well, he's an actor, but the voice of Star Wars, Darth Vader. I tell you, my mind is not working. He did sign something that is allowing, because he's retiring, so Disney is allowed to use him in things because, but without him actually doing it. So I'm assuming he explicitly did say, or it didn't come up of his, when he dies, because that's the whole point. He's essentially no longer performing anymore, so his performance has ended. Right. That can get kind of gritty, I don't know. And I know they've done that in some, that's kind of come up most recently that I can think of is the Fast and Furious, Paul, can't remember his name, I apologize. But he passed away, and then I believe it was his brother was the stand-in to finish the movie, and then they CG'd the face on him or whatever. And I know that also happened. Oh my goodness, what was that one? Where like, not time travel, but then they decided the actor, maybe it was Heath Ledger when he passed, and then like Johnny Depp and other people, like they took it so every time they went somewhere it was a different actor or something, like that's a different way. I guess they didn't take his likeness. So that's another way that people can do things. But so that's what I'm thinking that is. Okay, now let's look at page 67B. This is digital alteration. This section, 20B, applies when a performer is employed by the producer under this agreement under a contract entered into on or after the first Sunday that is 90 days after the AMPTP's receipt of notice of ramification to render services as a performer in a motion picture, and the producer, directly or through a third party, digitally alters the performer's voice or likeness in that motion picture. Okay. This is very specifically movies. The producer must obtain the consent of a performer to digitally alter the performer's performance in photography or soundtrack previously recorded by the performer, provided, however, that no consent is required when the photography or soundtrack of the performer remains substantially as scripted, performed, and/or recorded. Any consent required must be clear and conspicuous and include a reasonably specific description of the intended alterations. Consent may be obtained through an endorsement or statement in the performer's employment contract that is separately signed or initialed by the performer or in a separate writing that is signed by the performer. Okay, sounds straightforward, but this is only protecting people in movies, so. And then page 68C. For clarity, the producer need not obtain the consent of the performer under paragraphs A, 2, or B above to perform post-production alterations, editing, arranging, rearranging, revising, or manipulating of photography and/or soundtrack for purposes of cosmetics, wardrobe, noise reduction, timing or speed, continuity, pitch or tone, clarity, addition of visual/sound effects or filters, standards and practices, ratings, and adjustment in dialogue or narration, or other similar purposes, or under any circumstance when dubbing or use of a double is permitted under the codified basic agreement or television agreement. So again, that was kind of covering what we'd already said. If you need, for the noise reduction, or whatever, if you're going to use a double for something, so that's kind of that. See, that kind of weasels out stunt performers. I'm not well-versed in stunt performing, or any circumstance when dubbing or a use of a double is permitted. So for use of a double would include any action shots, right? So they wouldn't need the rights to create somebody. So I guess in that instance, see, that's so weird, because if you get the likeness of the person, it basically cuts out stunt workers' job. You don't need a stunt worker if you can take Tom Hiddleston and animate him to do his own stunts. Then you don't need his stunt performer. So it's not necessarily using the stunts performer's likeness, it's just taking their job away. So that's not any better. I don't like that. But I guess it's safer, but who am I to say, stunt performers, they do it because they love it. So I feel like I need to support them in not supporting the idea of terminating their employment. And then, of course, dubbing kind of erases for any, distribution globally. So if you were going to dub over Emma Roberts and in Spanish, instead of hiring a Spanish voice actor, you use their voice, but type in Spanish speaking, I don't know how that works on the back end. I'd never care to learn because AI voice, synthetic voices is not something I want to support. So why learn about it in that, in such nitty gritty like that? But I think that is where a lot of people are going to lose jobs. So it's not necessarily not being compensated for your likeness. It's just cutting you out entirely out of the equation. So we're not fans of that. Now we're going to look at clause or section 20.1, generative artificial intelligence. I'm going to need your help on how to pronounce the abbreviation, because I don't want to get canceled, but it looks like it would say something. So, the parties acknowledge that definitions of generative artificial intelligence, GAI, or is it GAI? GAI. GAI. Right? Like, right? It sounds like it's just gay. I guess it's GAI, artificial AI. So is it GAI? I think you would say generative, so right? Is this GIF thing? So AI. JI. Artificial. Yeah, so it's artificial intelligence. Jai. So it's like J, but with an accent. Jai. Is it gay or jai? Let me know. Or something else. Am I not getting it? Is it GAI? Maybe it is just GAI. Vary, but agree that the term generally refers to a subset of artificial intelligence that learns patterns from data and produces content based on those patterns. Example, ChatGPT-4, Midjourney, DALL-E 2. It does not include traditional AI technologies programmed to perform specific functions. Example, CGI and VFX, such as those already used during all stages of motion picture production. Okay, so maybe this from the previous clause, I didn't click until now, where it said historically they can use this. So maybe they were referring to historically you use CGI and special effects. You can still do that. We're talking about GAI. Okay, I'm just gonna say GAI until we figure out how we're supposed to pronounce it, because I don't want to be canceled, like I said. So, for example, pre-visualization, pre-production, production, post-production, distribution, marketing. The term GAI is used for convenience. It's not convenient for me, who doesn't know how to say it. And this section 20.1 shall also apply to any technology that is consistent with the foregoing definition, regardless of its name. Okay. But that might be a problem when you want to be distinctive. A. Use of synthetic performers created through generative artificial intelligence. The following applies to the use of synthetic performers in a motion picture that commences principal photography on or after, insert date that the first Sunday that is 90 days after the AMPTP's receipt of notice of ramification. A synthetic performer is a digitally created asset that, 1, is intended to create and does create the clear impression that the asset is a natural performer who is not recognizable as any identifiable natural performer. 2, is not voiced by a natural person. 3, is not a digital replica, as defined in Section 20 above. And 4, no employment arrangement for the motion picture exists with a natural performer in the role being portrayed by the asset. So it's erasing all of the talented performers that are the parent part creation of the conglomeration. Okay, so this is a new entity using 20 different other talents for their likeness, their voice, whatever. It's completely conceptualized by artificial intelligence. No other contracts have been written for any of the talents for their likeness to create this because it's not just one person. So if you use 2 people, suddenly you have no rights to your likeness. They made a baby, right? Have you seen those things, or like what person A and person B would like, what their baby would look like? So that baby that is now its own non-natural identity. It's a GAI, and neither parent needs a contract for this person because you shared. The parties acknowledge the importance of human performance in motion pictures. Does it? Does it acknowledge that? And the potential impact on employment under this agreement when a synthetic performer created through a GAI system is used in a human role that would otherwise be performed by a human. Okay, so you acknowledge the importance that a human still was involved. For those reasons, the producer agrees to give the union notice, not the performer, the union, and an opportunity to bargain in good faith over appropriate consideration, if any, if a synthetic performer is used in place of a performer who would have been engaged under this agreement in a human role. So they were going to hire Chris Pratt, but he's been in a lot of stuff, and now there's, he's a little bit more controversial these days. So instead of hiring him, they use his likeness along with, let's just throw in all the other Chris's, right? Chris Pine, whatever, Chris Hemsworth, right? And they make conglomeration. But they were thinking originally of hiring Chris Pratt so they can go to the union and say, hey, we were going to hire Chris Pratt for this role, but we made a new role. They're not going to be honest. People are never honest. They're hardly honest for things that, you can get 100% clarity on. And then, okay, Chris Pratt was going to be chosen, but you still used Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth likeness to create this thing with Chris Pratt. They get nothing? So their likeness is used, but they weren't going to be hired originally. They just were thrown in so it doesn't look like Chris Pratt specifically. That's what this is saying, right? Because I'm pretty sure that's what this is saying. And we're going to leave it to these producers to be honest and to come to the union and say, we're using an AI, but we were going to hire this actor. Do we believe that? I believe that that's what this is saying, but I don't believe that that's actually going to happen. And then, how is Chris Pratt or Chris Pines or Chris Hemsworth going to say, hey, 33% of that AI looks like me? They can't do that. How would they prove it? Who's going to know? I never thought that was going to be such a used against me. Who's going to know? Nobody's going to know. So, not looking great, is it? Okay, and then there's another sentence. I didn't take a screenshot of it. Forgive me. The parties acknowledge that the producers have customarily used digital technologies to generate non-human characters without the services of a performer covered under this agreement, and that the foregoing does not apply to such uses. Customarily, you used technologies to create non-human characters. So, aliens. I'm assuming they really mean animated animals or something. Like the Lion King, whatever. Without a performer. So it doesn't apply to those. So non-human characters, does not apply to them. Still looking for trouble, I think. But I guess Avatar, but those are the environmental based, right? What was it called? Yeah, I think that was called that. Where they were paid for their likeness. It's just, hey, we're turning you into this, blue cat alien thing. So they did get compensated for that. Is that a non-human character? That's all I have for, in terms of reading for those things. So, I'm just going to resign to the fact that this is going to be a very long video. But I think it needed to be shared and it needed to be said. And I didn't want to split this up too many different ways. It is very concerning. Oh, I do have one other person that I wanted to share. So this was on X, formerly known as Twitter. Alexis Vandom posted December 6th. That's 7:17 a.m. Thanks in large part to SAG-AFTRA, voice actors all over the world are going to be waking up today asking themselves one frightening existential question. What am I supposed to do with my life now that my entire profession, my very passion, is about to be automated away? There are several theories about how this whole thing will go. Some believe AI will eventually burst, like a bubble, due in large part to a mass rejection by audiences. Some believe AI will only ever take away certain types of work, and that others will always need the human touch. The conversation goes on along. I didn't screenshot all of the parts, but here are two relevant comments. Metal Sonic Reject said, considering the studio's first couple offers were paying actors once to own their data and use dead actors without permission, I think there is every reason to be worried. And Noemimi said, this is the moment for the indie industry to emerge. So, yeah, I think that's kind of where we are all are at this point. It's a lot of unknown and honestly a lot of fear. So I personally felt the brunt of it already, and mixed with some other things as well. So I, as I say in my vlog and in that dreaded pivot episode, voice acting will always be a passion, but it is, as a career, is kind of on the back burner for me. I am accepting new projects. I'm actually in quite a few different contracts for audiobooks. I've got 3. So, so I'm still doing it. I'm still there. But as a full-time profession, I've kind of just resigned to it's just not going to happen for me. It's still happening for a lot of different people, and I'm so happy for them. And I hope nothing but success for them and that this doesn't affect them. But my fear is that it will. It'll affect a lot of us, and even the people who are already well established, been working full-time for years. I think also any platform artists, like Upwork, freelance, Elancer, or whatever, I think it got switched, Fiverr, it'll just be easier and cheaper to use AI, and they'll be able to get away with it because there's just no protection involved, Maybe the government will get it under ropes or whatever, but even if America does it, because SAG-AFTRA is American and stuff, other countries, as long as that information, that data is still out there and accessible, other countries can totally do it, I think, without repercussions. It's really hard, and as far as I understand it, to get into, especially an individual lawsuit internationally. Maybe companies, I guess, can, but it's just not pretty and it's not hopeful. So let's move on to something more hopeful. And this is the Video Game Awards. So I'm going to link the 3 articles that I pulled from. It is going to be Epic Games, IGN, and Games Radar. And I'm just going to summarize, right? Nitty gritty and everything. So there were a lot of nominees, but let's actually just go through the winners. Winner for Game of the Year is Baldur's Gate 3 by Larian Studios. Best Game Direction. Winner is Alan Wake 2, Remedy Entertainment and Epic Games Publishing. Best Adaptation. Winner is The Last of Us, PlayStation Productions /HBO. Best Narrative. Winner is Alan Wake 2. Best Art Direction. Alan Wake 2. Best Score and Music. Final Fantasy XVI, composer Masayoshi Soken from Square Enix. Best Audio Design. Hi-Fi Rush, Tango Gameworks /Bethesda Softworks. Best Performance. Neil Newbon from Baldur's Gate 3. Innovation in Accessibility. Winner, Forza Motorsport, Turn 10 Studios /Xbox Game Studios. Games for Impact. Winner, I apologize for my pronunciation, Tchia Awakeb /Kepler Interactive. Again, my apologies. Best Ongoing Game. Cyberpunk 2077, CD Projekt Red. Best Community Support. Winner, Baldur's Gate 3. Best Independent Game, Sea of Stars by Sabotage Studio. Best Mobile Game, Honkai Star Rail by Hoyoverse. Best VR/AR Game, Resident Evil Village VR Mode by Capcom. Best Action Game, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon from Software/Bandai Namco. Best Action Adventure Game, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, Nintendo EPD, what does that stand for? Nintendo. Best RPG, Baldur's Gate 3. Best Fighting Game, Street Fighter 6, Capcom. Best Family Game, Super Mario Bros. Wonder, Nintendo. Best Sim/Strategy Game, Pikmin 4, Nintendo. Best Sports/Racing, Forza Motorsport. Best Multiplayer presented by Discord, Baldur's Gate 3. Most Anticipated Game, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Square Enix. Content Creator of the Year, Iron Mouse. Best Esports Game, Valorant, Riot Games. Let me know if you agree with those. I know I need to try Baldur's Gate 3. I don't really love RPGs anymore. I realized I didn't really like them. I love action RPGs. This one, Baldur's, it seems like it is, it would probably be something I do enjoy. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe next year I'll try to play it. Some news came out, and I feel like this should be a separate video, so I'm just gonna say my 2 highlights. Let me know in the description down below if any news came out that you're like, oh my gosh, you need to talk about this, or I wanna have a conversation about this. Let me know. I will also go through it and see if I missed anything that I'd like to talk about. I just found 2 that really caught my eye. There is a new song, No Promises to Keep, for the upcoming Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It is so beautiful. I've only seen the live version. In the background, you can see, I believe it's Aerith, as if she were singing. I'd like to see that because that's really beautifully animated. But I guess maybe it actually is in the game. So maybe it was, I just saw the clip. I didn't get to watch the awards. I know. I'll get my act together. Like I said, 2024 thing. But anyway, Final Fantasy VII holds a really special place in my heart. That's why when I say I don't like RPGs, it's like a what? Because Final Fantasy VII really is sentimentally important to me, but I prefer like action RPGs over the traditional classic Japanese RPGs. Anyway. And then, yes, so exciting. My guy Hideo Kojima is partnering with Jordan Peele on a new horror game called OD. I am not a huge fan of horror games, but I feel like I'm gonna need to check it out anyway. So that's really cool. And he also mentioned working with another yet to be named creator, again in the horror genre. So that's cool. I'm excited to see stuff that he does. So those are the only ones I pulled out. But let me know. I know I missed things. There were a lot of stuff. I was like, oh, that looks cool. That looks good. But this video is long enough, and I just wanted to let you know highlights of the winners. So yeah, this video overall was kind of depressing, thinking about the future of things. But doesn't mean that next year was gonna suck. I don't know. I'm trying to keep it positive, like, hey, anime is dying and voice actors are losing their jobs, but yay! No, it's not all doom and gloom. I'm sure things will work out. There are just, obstacles and bumps, but that's makes the journey sweeter or something, right? People always say adversity makes you stronger, so we will see what happens. But yes, so that's going to be it for me. This is probably going to be it for 2023, except I might do a vlog. But otherwise, remember, you are worthy, you are loved, and whatever you are struggling with today will pass. Until next time, stay crazy.